Hey everyone, Andrew here. It's time for the top 5 films of 2024. I will only be doing the top 5. If you saw my bottom 5 list, I will be doing my honorable mentions in a completely separate video. But for now, we're going to focus on the top 5 films of 2024. Or should I say the top 6. We have a tie between Inside Out 2 and Moana 2. I had a bit of trouble with this because I watched a film very late in this year. Like, I watched it literally this last week, and it bumped itself straight up into my top 5. And I realized that, based off my ratings, that Inside Out 2 was not going to make it into my top 5. And I could not do that. I considered it. I tried to talk myself into it. I even tried to talk myself into lowering Moana 2 out so that Inside Out 2 could be in its spot, but I could not do that to either of these films. Both films have their strengths and both films have their weaknesses. Inside Out 2 is a sequel to one of my favorite of the Pixar films. It has a beautiful level of animation, beautiful storytelling. You get to see a little bit more about the inside workings, the way the characters interact with each other, the way they deal with these brand new emotions that develop as a result of puberty. The best new addition is Anxiety, who adds this fun level of chaotic energy, but you can completely understand why they are the way they are. It's like they do think they're doing the best thing for Riley without realizing the full consequences of that. Much like Joy figures out that she's been doing for Riley's entire life. Just Joy having to realize that while she thought she was doing the right thing, she wasn't, and that she isn't really any different than Anxiety. Just trying to control the situation and having to let go and let Riley figure out entirely who she is on her own with all of her memories and all of her information. And it has this really deep emotional resonance with it, where you really feel the anxiety and the stress and the drama of the situation, going through the ideas of what is anxiety like at that age, and how hard it is to get control and how hard it is to find yourself when you're getting lost in your own emotions. Like, it has such a deep resonance to it. Beautifully animated, great storytelling, great use of the characters, great new characters added. Anxiety and ennui and embarrassment and jealousy all work really well. I've seen some people say like this is one of Pixar's best, and it's a very good Pixar film. I can't say it's one of their best. Like, it doesn't make my top 5. I would say it's like on par with like Coco and Cars 3, where it's like it's very, very good. But this is a film for me that has a little bit less of a rewatchability. And not because it's bad or because I don't want to or anything, just because the stuff that it's dealing with can be so rough to watch, especially for me. So it makes rewatching it a bit harder to see, them making these choices and these things where you're like, oh, that are very cringe and very hard to watch. So that is what unfortunately kept it from being higher on this list for me, is that it's just a little bit harder to rewatch than I would like it to be. Also, the replacing of certain voice actors, like they had their reasons. I'm not sure why. It is kind of disappointing to not have the original Envy and the original Fear being the same voice actors. They do good jobs. I don't hate them, but it's just like, yeah. And then you have Moana 2. And Moana 2, much like Inside Out 2, is kind of a rehash of the first film. It's a lot of Moana going on this journey. She has been tasked with finding this island that connects all of the humanity together. And that island was hidden by this storm god named Nalo, who doesn't want humanity to be connected. So he sunk the island to make sure no humans could touch it. And so she and a crew travel out to go find this island, and they're helped out by Maui. And it's some of the same beats, but it has a lot of good elements to it. Great character development, great storytelling, interesting action scenes, interesting story arcs. It has a really great animation style to it. It still has that high level of quality to it. Great characters, great story, good arc, great ideas, great action scenes. The songs sadly aren't quite as good as in the original with this, but there are a couple outliers. I do think Maui's song is a lot better in this one than it was in the first one. Some of the characters are a little bit one note, unfortunately. You meet some of her allies and you're like, okay, you're the warrior, you're the daydreamer, and you're the person obsessed with science. Okay. Like, they don't do much to get outside of that mentality. There's a really fun, interesting villain of this vampire lady that's trapped inside the shell that you think is going to be the villain, but ends up being an ally because she's been trapped by the evil god as well. And she has the best song in the entire show. It does feel a smidge on the rushed side, and I think that's a combination of the story writing, but also just how this film kind of came into being. It's a film that like only got announced like last year, like, and originally it was going to be a mini series on Disney Plus, but then it ended up being made into a theatrical film. And honestly, like, it's worthy of being a theatrical film. It has those elements and that stuff that makes it feel, you know, theatrical. It doesn't feel like a straight to streaming film, but it does have a bit of a pacing issue. It just feels like a bit rushed, and certain things are just not delved into as well as they should have. That said, while I liked the very first 3/4 of the film, the last 20 to 30 minutes of this film are like perfection. Like, it's got such a great arc and emotional depth to it. I was legitimately sobbing in the theater. Like, I could not stop the tears. They were just pouring down. And I'm not someone who tends to cry a lot at movies. Like, I can watch emotionally devastating films with a straight face and no tears. Like, stories where the main love interest dies of cancer, and I'm just like, eh. But for whatever reason, Moana 2 made me sob. And I don't know why. And I liked the implications of the ending. I liked the questions that it left, and it made you interested and excited for more stories from this. And I like the fact that when she finally gets to the island and touches it, that the people all appear, and it's not like they were on the island, it's that they were all looking for the island as well as she was. She only found the island because she had help. Divine intervention type of thing. But this is a film that I know a lot of people didn't get behind as much. So a lot of people are saying it's just the first one again, and it's like, if you didn't particularly love the first one, I can understand not liking this one as much. I love the first one. It is not quite as good as the original Moana. Same with like Inside Out 2, or it's like they're not quite as good as their originals, but they are very good follow-ups and tell a really strong story. If I had to pick one, I'm going to say Inside Out 2 is the better made film, but Moana 2 is the film I get more enjoyment out of. Like I said, Inside 2 has a quality to it that I cannot deny, which is why I had to keep it in this list in some way and not just make it an honorable mention. But Moana 2 is one of the films that I gave 5 out of 5 this year, and while I don't necessarily believe it deserves that, I cannot at this time lower it in my brain rating wise. I may later, but right now this is what I'm going with. Transformers 1. This is a film that even I wasn't planning to see in theaters. Like, I saw the trailers and I thought that this looked awful. Like, oh great, a prequel film about how Optimus Prime and Megatron used to be friends. It's like, oh, great. Just what we need, another prequel about how the villain and the hero used to be friends. Because that has been done so many times, and it almost never works very well. My favorite example is Pan, where they screwed up that plot so much that Captain Hook is not even the villain by the end of that story. He's still one of the good guys by the end of the film, and you're like, So I had no plans to see this, and then I started seeing the reviews for it, and everyone was saying that this is the best made Transformers film of all time, and I went, okay, well, now I'm interested. So I went and saw it, And once I went and saw it, I 100% agree that this is easily the best Transformers film ever made. Without a doubt. Like, the only one that's really competition for it is the original one from 1986. And even that is not nearly as good as this one is. This has the perfect level of storytelling, perfect level of characterization, journey, art, animation, quality. You do get to see how, Optimus Prime and Megatron started out and how they went from friends to enemies. But it feels well paced and well done and very natural because you see their journey from start to finish. Optimus Prime was always this person trying to rise above his status, trying to have hope and seeking out these things, and Megatron's character was the worker bee of the hive. He was the guy that did the digging. He was the one that followed orders and believed in the ruler and believed in the only Prime that was left that was giving orders, which was Sentinel Prime. And then when they traveled to the surface and find out that Sentinel Prime is not only working for the villains, but he is the reason that all of the other Primes are dead, that he got them all killed, that adds so much to it. And you can see Megatron's view of the world shatter and to be filled with nothing but rage and hate, and you see his fall to evil and you completely understand it and sympathize with it and see where it's coming from, because yes, that would make me never trust people again either. Like, it destroyed his entire view of the world and filled him with nothing but hate and loathing, and it's just so good and so well told. It has such great animation, good storytelling, great world building, interesting ideas, interesting uses of the characters. I loved that they had Starscream in it and that he had a normal voice, and then during the fight with Megatron, he crushed his throat, which is what causes Starscream to have that high-pitched screaming voice. Like, that is such an element that you don't expect to ever be covered. The last 10 minutes of this film are like perfection. Just this perfect level of watching, this character rise up into Megatron, and how, Optimus Prime sacrificed himself for his friend, and that turned him into the hero that we know him as today. There are a couple little nitpicks with the film. It's not very good at the comedy. Like, all the comedy is kind of thrust upon B-127, or Badassatron as he calls himself, but we all know he's Bumblebee, and he was voiced by Keegan-Michael Key, who's pretty funny and can work really well and give good performances, but there's not a lot for him to work with here, and he's trying, but it feels a smidge forced.
Got a battle mask! It appeared with this guy! Knife hands? I have knife hands!
I can see that.
The only other real negative I can give for this is that at the very end, when Optimus Prime becomes full Optimus Prime character, they do a voice modulator to make his voice sound more like the original voice actor from the original cartoons, and I feel that was overkill. Like, he got to the point where his voice was doing that enough on its own that it didn't need the extra mechanical help. Like, I think it would have worked fine if he had just done his own voice with a little bit more timbre or a little bit more gravitas in it. It's not a deal breaker in any way. Like, I still think this is a 5 out of 5 film for it, but it is one of the things that is why it's not higher on this list. But those are very minor nitpicks. Like, everything else in this film is so interesting and so well told. I love this origin story. I love seeing the fall of these friends, and it adds so much more to their relationships from the other series. Definitely the best Transformers film, which of course meant no one went to see it, and it bombed. And so we aren't going to get any more from this line, and that's a shame, because this was easily the best. But yeah, the marketing people screwed this film over. Like, if they'd done a better job, this could have been the new franchise, but of course the great films always kind of get passed over in this regard. Wicked, Part 1. So this is the film that I watched last week that added itself onto this list. I did not see it in theaters. I waited till it was on streaming, because I was very kind of wary on it. For starters, it was the length. Like, the fact that it's an almost 3-hour film and it's only covering part of the musical, a musical that's only like 3.5 hours as it is to 4 hours. Like, it's not a super long musical. So the idea that they had to make this long a film to cover half of it was a bit ugh. And I was a little wary with the leads because I don't know anything about Cynthia Erivo, and but I do know a little bit about Ariana Grande, and I wasn't expecting a great performance from her. And I'd even heard her sing like Popular on the radio before I even went and watched it, and I was like listening to it on the radio going, she's having a hard time singing this song. Like, she's having a hard time getting breath in, which is fair. It's a hard song. It's very, very fast, but I was very wary of what she would give to the performance. Add in the fact that this film has been in development hell for 12 years and gone through so many different variations and different problems. And I was worried. I was like, I wasn't expecting a high level of quality from it. I was expecting it to just be set in the school, and I wasn't expecting it to have any level of grandiose to it. I wasn't expecting it to be as high a level quality as it turned out to be. But I knew from like the first minute that this was a top of the year contender. Like, just this gorgeous looking Oz, this beautiful landscape and this beautiful design that made me desperately want to see more of this world, more of this Oz. Like, this is the best Oz has looked since the original one from the 1930s. Then you get to the characters and the performances and the storytelling, and my god, Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo just did amazing performances with these characters. Like Ariana Grande lived Galinda so hard that it worked so well. You legitimately feel their friendship in this one. Like, these two seem like the best of friends by the end of this film. It had such great storytelling, great designs, amazing costumes, amazing set design, amazing makeup and effects. Like, this film better be nominated for all of those awards because it's just so good in all those elements. Plus, then you get to the musical numbers and the singing and the performances. Like, they used the spaces so well and added so much life and energy and heart to the songs. Like, my favorite example is Fiero's Dancing Through Life, where they're just, like, bouncing off the walls and doing all these elaborate movements that just gives so much life to this world and make it feel more lived in, and like this was actually intended to be a film and not just a musical they put into a film. Because that was my worry. I was worried that this was going to feel like it was meant to be a stage play. That there are sometimes when they do musicals like this where it doesn't have that grandiose quality that a theatrical film should have. And this film had that, and it worked, and it balanced so well and added so much to it that it just is expertly done from start to finish. I love the fact that they got the original stars of the musical in this as the seers, the people that prophesized the arrival of someone who could read the grimoire and use it to, change the world. And that they got to stand next to their new, younger versions of themselves and sing together. It just worked beautifully well. So great to see that. I was not expecting them to show up, so I was happy to see them. And I loved the Emerald City and getting to see that city and explore it and seeing these touches that you see stuff from the original film, but done in a more modern way. And it just works so well that it legitimately leaves me excited for more. There's very few nitpicks I can really give to this. It's kind of funny. My mom watched this after I told her it was really good and was recommending. She was like, "It's fine." And I'm like, okay. So, yeah, I can't guarantee you're going to love it as much as I did, but I truly thought it was beautiful and gorgeous. It's a film that lives up to the spectacle of not only the stage play, but also the original 1930s one. It has this perfect level of energy and life and characteristics to it, but legitimately one of my favorite musicals of the last 10 years. The Wild Robot. There were a lot of films this year where I was kind of like, I don't know if I'm gonna like this, and this was definitely one where I'm like, yeah, because it looked a lot like a lower tier DreamWorks film. From the trailers, I was already kind of like on it, especially once she learns the animals' language and starts conversing with them and all that. I was like, I feel like this film would be way more interesting and way more creative if she never learned how to speak like the animals and she had to figure it all out through their body movements and their sounds and just had to figure out how to interpret it. But there was another film that kind of did that this year, and it did not make my top 5, but it definitely came close, and that was Flow. Flow was a film that was basically about a cat going through a post-apocalyptic world. It gets flooded and has to befriending these other animals and having to figure out how to survive together, all done through animal noises, no dialogue, no figuring out what each other are saying. And it's really well told and really beautiful, but the lack of dialogue does get to be a bit grating after a bit. It's like after a while you're like, I'm kind of sick of hearing this cat scream. I just want to, So honestly, the Wild Robots version of this actually works better now that I've compared the two. I'm like, oh yeah, no, the dialogue in this works so much better, and there's such great performances and great characters and great storytelling. Characters are all really well written, the journey's really well written, this comedy in this works extremely well. So heartwarming, and I love the natural progression of this. I love watching this robot character be 100% robot automaton, and then, having to raise this creature and having to think about things in a non-robotic way, in a more humanistic, living, reactionary kind of way, and reacting to the animal and how that robot evolves into having feelings and emotions and trying to protect everything is so beautifully animated, well told, great characters, great storytelling. I love all of the surrounding animal creatures. And there's a part of this where it's like there's a huge snowstorm and everyone is like on the verge of dying, and the robot goes and rescues everybody even though they're scared of her. And they all don't trust her, and they all want to leave, and eventually, like, they manage to convince them all to stay, and end up respecting and loving her because she saved them, that she risked everything to protect her animal families, protect all of these creatures. And it's got such great heart to it, great storytelling. This is legitimately up there as one of the best films DreamWorks has ever done. It's easily in their top 5 alongside like Shrek 1 and 2 and Megamind. Like, this might, honestly, I probably would say this is maybe better than Megamind, and I love Megamind. And it's funny to me that the same company did one of the best films of the year and one of the worst films of the year. But, different departments. DreamWorks Animation proper did this one, whereas the television side did the Megamind show. So well told, so creative, so interesting. A feast for the eyes, a feast for the soul. This is a definitely one of the ones where it's like, if it doesn't get nominated for the Academy Award for Best Picture, I'm going to be pissed. Like, if Flow gets nominated and wins, I will understand. But if, like, this is easily the best animated film of the year for me. Like, it is just gorgeous, great characterization, great storytelling, unique ideas. I love the way it's shot. I love the way it's framed. Just a masterpiece to me from start to finish. Easily one of the best things DreamWorks has ever done. Deadpool and Wolverine. A controversial pick, I would say, because I've heard some people really didn't like this film, and I'm like, are you crazy? Like, this film was amazing from start to finish. Like, I got why everyone was very wary of it. Like, bringing back Hugh Jackman to do this part after he had the perfect finale for his character with Logan. Like, you were not going to top Logan, and that is not possible. Logan was such a great note to end on that bringing the character back feels like it's going to dampen and worsen the legacy of Logan. And for me personally, it doesn't at all in this. Like, he gets to be a new version of Logan, a different variant that has a different history and a different story, but gets to have his own life and energy and stuff into this. And they paid the original Logan enough respect that you're like, okay, this still works. Logan still works as a finality for this character, but we can still have fun with Hugh Jackman and do this type of Wolverine and this type of storytelling. This I think is improved by the fact that if you listen to some of the interviews and some of the talking about it, that coming back to be Wolverine for this film was entirely Hugh Jackman's idea. This is not like, oh, I got offered money and I chose to do this for the money. No, he actively wanted to do this film. Like, he was driving his car down one day and he asked himself,
what do you want to do in life? What do you want to do? I went, I want to do Deadpool Wolverine. Sorry, it was Wolverine Deadpool when I was thinking about it. But I just thought I really want to do it, and I pulled over and I rang Ryan. And I said, dude, I don't know where you're at. I know you're shooting. I think you're getting ready to shoot, but please tell me we can do this movie.
You can tell from the interviews and everything that I've watched with him and all the behind-the-scenes stuff that he and the entire cast had a blast with this film from start to finish.
And I had more fun playing him this time than ever before. I had a blast.
But this
Hugh Jackman is having like the most fun you've ever seen him. You get to see him in that original yellow costume. You get to see him fighting more like the Wolverine, getting to meet someone who is his equal in healing factor and survivability, so he can actually like go full out without having to hesitate or worry about ramifications. You had such great chemistry between the two of them. They work off each other so well. The action scenes are amazing and well done. The effects and the fighting and the storytelling are all top notch. There is one of the negatives would be that the supporting characters from the first two Deadpool films are kind of pushed off to the side for this, especially Cable, who's only just mentioned because they didn't want to bring him in. I get that some fans of the characters are very sad that they didn't get to have more screen time, but it worked for this film because this is not necessarily just a Deadpool sequel. This is a Wolverine sequel. This is a last hurrah for the Fox-led superhero films. Both for the good and the bad, those films are never going to be made again. And it is a loving tribute to all of that, the good, the bad, and everything in between. And this is such a great, better note for the entire franchise to go out on, as opposed to, say, you know, New Mutant, or even the Dead Phoenix. The Dead Dark Phoenix. Like, this is the note that I think if Fox had really known they were going to be done, this is the note they would rather go out on, as this loving tribute. Great villain, great side characters, but I knew like this film was perfection with that Fantastic Four character reveal. Like, the second that popped up, I immediately went, this film is 5 out of 5. It can tank the rest of this film. It's going to be 5 out of 5 for me for that alone. All of those fight sequences, all of those characters, these characters that we never thought we were ever going to see as these people again, or that we never got to see them as this character to begin with, and to see them realized and to really be that is just perfection. Like, oh my god, some of those cameos were just absolutely amazing. This is the last real hurrah for all of these characters. My god, this is such a great note to go out on because they put in everything they could. We got so much of the best kind of fan service, because there's good fan service and there's bad fan service, and this is great fan service, whereas opposed to, say, some of the stuff that was in like Alien Romulus was bad fan service, where it's just shoving in a quotable line into the film because someone else said it, even if it doesn't make sense in this film to do it.
Get away from her. You bitch.
It is fan service that is there to make you cheer and make you be happy and bring out everything you want to see in a film. And I know some people didn't like this film. I saw one guy's list of X-Men films where he had all 3 of the Deadpool films at the bottom, and he said it was a bad representation of Deadpool. And I'm like, seriously? You really think that all of the Deadpool films are worse than X-Men Origins Wolverine and the New Mutants? Really? I like, you're entitled to your opinion. You are completely wrong. Like, you can hate Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool, but you have to acknowledge those films are better made than the New Mutants was. Like, jeez Louise. That is your opinion, I guess. I think that Ryan Reynolds gave us the best version of Deadpool that he could. And I think that he gave it some heart and some thought and really took everything in this to a level that no one was expecting. Like, if this is the last outing for Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool, if this is the last outing for Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, this is still a huge, good note to go out on. Easily the best Deadpool film. It's one of the best films with Wolverine in them. It's one of the best Fox superhero films of all time. And definitely my favorite film from 2024. But that's just my opinion. What do you all think? Do you like these films? Do you hate these films? Am I completely wrong? Is Deadpool and Wolverine absolutely terrible? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I will be uploading the honorary and dishonorary mentions for 2024 at a later time. That should be the next video that comes out after this. Happy watching, happy reading. I will see you all then. Bye!